A key men's basketball official visit begins on Friday. Let's discuss. It's Locked on Louisville.
You are Locked on Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this second Friday episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my sixth year covering U of L, fourth year hosting this show. And I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Don't forget to leave a comment in the YouTube section below, because as you all know, it's a great way to help the show continue to grow. It is much appreciated. A key men's basketball official visit begins on Friday. Four-star center Josh Irving will be on campus. Is he the top priority at center? I believe so, for a couple of reasons I'll explain coming up here shortly. We'll take a look at his official visit schedule, who's all involved in this recruitment, and also what he could potentially bring to the Cardinals program. We will react to the new NCAA transfer portal rule. It is 1,000% the right decision from the NCAA. We'll discuss shortly, and then we will answer 3 questions in the shortened weekly mailbag. But first, today's episode brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. As I mentioned earlier in the week, there was only supposed to be 4 episodes, but got back into town earlier on Thursday and was able to record a second Friday episode. The first one was the final Bowling Green football prep, but this one we're going to dedicate to the basketball side until we get to the weekly mailbag. The Cardinals hosting a key prospect in the 2026 class this weekend for an official visit. He is Josh Irving, 4-star center from Pasadena, California, 6'10", 200 pounds, ranked as the 50th best player in the country, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. Now, I believe that Irving is the top center priority for Pat Kelsey and the coaching staff in the 2026 cycle. And to fully understand, you kind of have to go back to the summer when Louisville was involved with a ton of guys, mainly guards, but there were a couple centers that were brought up, but it was mostly guards and wings. And then Arifon Dian ended up rising up the rankings. All of a sudden, Louisville tried to get involved, and he ended up cutting the Cardinals from his list. So Josh Irving was a player that Ronnie Hamilton went to see back in June at the Section 7 event in Arizona. And it wasn't until the Puma event in Texas in late July when Louisville started to turn up the heat. And we didn't really hear much about Irving until late July, really early August is when his name started to pop up. And at that point, you kind of seen what the priority order was. You can't really go out and ask coaches who their top priorities are, but they show you through their actions who they go to see, who their home visits are with, how frequently they visit those players, who they're watching on the AAU circuit. And Josh Irving has been a player that the Cardinals have frequently visited. And I guess it is geographically beneficial, considering that Tyron Stokes is out in California. So if you're going to visit Stokes, you can knock out 2 birds with 1 stone and visit Irving as well. Same thing out in the Atlanta area with Talon Kenny and Colvin Landry. But those 4 names are the 4 that you hear the most about. Now, is there a priority order 1 through 4? Possibly, possibly not. But you see where the Cardinals' efforts are concentrated. Now, unfortunately, the basketball recruiting news over the past week or so hasn't really been all that encouraging with how the Talon Kenny recruitment is seemingly going, or how it's trending, and that is especially towards Kansas. But Colvin Landry seems like right now it's Louisville and UConn, just checking the vibes on that. Tyron Stokes, hard to tell, but maybe Kentucky has the upper hand at the moment. But there haven't been many center prospects. And one of the reasons for that is because this isn't a great center class. Like, Irving is ranked as the 50th best player in the 24/7 Sports Composite, and he's the 4th best center. So of the 49 players ranked ahead of him, only 3 of those players are centers. So from a top priority standpoint, well, that would explain why, considering that he's one of the best centers in the country. There's not many options out there. Number 2, you can kind of go by Pat Kelsey and the coaching staff's actions. Ronnie Hamilton really prioritizing him. And not to mention, bringing him on a visit at this point is pretty telling. So I believe Josh Irving is not only a top center prospect on the board, but very well a possible top 4 priority on the board, regardless of position. Like I said, it is a wing-dominated 2026 class. But Irving is visiting the Cardinals this week. If you take a look at who else is in the sweepstakes for the 4-star center, he has been on a run of official visits. SMU in late August, Kansas on September 12th, September 27th. Next weekend will be Texas A&M, followed by Kentucky, and then USC. So you have kind of a mixture of different teams from across the United States. One thing with West Coast prospects is it feels like maybe it's not so much a trend as of late, but historically you see West Coast prospects tend to stay out on the West Coast. Now, he does have USC involved, San Diego State. He also visited in August. And again, there are some programs out there geographically that makes sense for him if he wants to stay closer to home. But it's going to be an uphill battle, right, for a top prospect, one of the top centers. If there is a lack of top-end talent at the center position, that means it's going to be more of an uphill battle that you're fighting here. But I really like the projection of Josh Irving in Pat Kelsey's system. Now, put that to the side for the moment. Let's take a look at how he's risen up the rankings, because going into the summer, he was outside of the top 100, a guy that was getting recruited, but not prioritized at this level. And over the past couple of months, his stock has just completely blown up. He's young for his grade, won't turn 18 until I think May of his senior year. But you look at the Pro 16 season, 8.3 points a game, 7.9 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks. And that's where Josh Irving really specializes, is defending the rim. Really good shot blocking instincts, to where he's probably one of the better rim protectors in this class. And something that when you look at the Pat Kelsey system, and I know that it is all about versatility, but having an anchor in the middle of the defense is extremely beneficial. You see it with the Alabama defense too, and it goes both ways, right? Offense and defense. But as much as he is occupying the middle defensively, most of his offense leading up to this point has been from around the rim, whether it is a rim runner or whether it's him being a rim runner, the roll man in the pick and roll, lob threat, a lot of his points from dunks and layups. But there is growing optimism that he could be a guy that stretches the floor. 76% free throw percentage in AAU ball. He was 5 of 13 from the three-point line. Now, is he going to be a guy that steps foot on a college campus in, 12 months, 11 months from now, and is able to be a respectable three-point shooter? Probably not. Now, he does have another year of development in the high school ranks, but I think it's going to take some time. That's where development comes into play. But I think that the tools are there. Like, the reviews of his game from a scouting report perspective, raving. Like, there have been multiple national recruiting analysts that have raved about the raw talent that Josh Irving possesses. Not to mention, for his size, 6'10", 200 pounds, he's probably going to need to add a little bit of weight, but moves extremely well. Like, 6'10" guys shouldn't be able to move that well. Lateral quickness to an extent, which is encouraging to see. Solid touch around the basket, good hands. I think that there is growing optimism for a post game, whether it's over the right or the left shoulder. So I'm intrigued by Josh Irving as a prospect, but I think that he is the type of modern day 5 in a Pat Kelsey system. Now, it goes without saying here that after this visit, what you're going to want to do is push for that commitment, because if he ends up making other visits, then I think the confidence wanes a little bit, doesn't fully go away. But you saw when Taylor Kinney visited the Cardinals in the summer, they seemed like they were the favorites up until he started taking more official visits. And then Kansas just gave him a Godfather offer, one that you can't refuse, or so we think. So the main thing you're going to see after this, and it's going to, of course, go back to don't pay attention to what they say, but what they do. And if Josh Irving ends up canceling some visits and sets a commitment date, then, of course, I think that that's best case scenario here. But intriguing prospect that I think is the top center priority for the Louisville Cardinals. When we come back, we are going to flip over to the football side of things, where the NCAA did the right thing. They tweaked the transfer portal window, and it was 100% the right decision. We'll react to it. It's all coming up right here on Locked on Louisville. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment, well, not this week, but the week before, because Louisville was on the bye, Clev Lubin. The moment that defined the game was his forced fumble in the end zone that gave the Louisville Cardinals their first lead of the game in the second half against James Madison. It was one in which Louisville did not look back on. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Card Nation, it's also that time of the year, truthfully my favorite time of the year, when the weather's cooling down, the days get shorter, and that has me wanting to make my home feel even cozier. And when it comes to cozifying your space this fall, Wayfair is the place to go. Wayfair has everything you need to set the mood for the season, whether it's comfy recliners, warm bedding, autumn decor, or even an espresso machine so you can make your favorite latte at home. What I love most is the variety. Wayfair has options for every style and budget, so you don't have to compromise. Cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates, from comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor. You'll find it all for way less on Wayfair.com. That's Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Once again, thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. The NCAA finally passed a ruling that eliminated the spring transfer portal window. It is 1,000% the right decision. But put the opinion off to the side for a moment. Let's take a look at the official language of the rule. From CBS Sports, NCAA approves single transfer portal window, how the new rule will affect college football. An excerpt from this: the NCAA Administrative Committee on Wednesday adopted a proposal to eliminate the spring transfer portal window, moving away from the previous two-window system that allowed players to submit their names in the portal over 30 days across the winter and spring. Changes will go into effect this season, with precise dates to be determined next month. And this is the main thing to me. This is the wild part. The key takeaway is the elimination of post-spring transfer movement, a popular option that more than 1,000 FBS players took advantage of this year. Just put that into context. Not considering the winter, but right after spring ball, or that spring portal window, 1,000 players plus, 1,000 plus players entered the portal. That is absolutely insane. And as you all can tell from the way I started this this segment, I am a huge advocate for this passing. And look, I am all for players benefiting from name, image, and likeness. I've always kind of felt that way. Like, never was against never was against players getting paid and getting a slice of that revenue pie, because after all, they are bringing in the big time money to the universities and the athletic programs. But, I understand that belief isn't universally held. Like, it's been a discussion for the past decade, probably past decade plus. But I feel like it would have been received better had the NCAA regulated. And don't forget, the institution had every opportunity to get out in front of this thing. They chose not to. The NCAA had every opportunity to get out in front of the transfer portal era and do some sort of regulations. And they tried. I was a huge, huge advocate for what the NCAA initially rolled out. The first transfer was free. Every player could transfer one time with no penalty, but every transfer after the first initial one, you had to sit out a season. I thought that was fair. It was an improvement from the long-standing transfer portal rule that unless you were a grad transfer, you had to sit out a season regardless. But that quickly went by the wayside, and you could then transfer each and every season if you chose to, and there were players that definitely took advantage of that. It started to take away fans' love for the sport. And of course, I'm talking about players being able to transfer to multiple schools in one offseason. And it all kind of comes down to the fact that there were no guidelines. And if this were rolled out better by the NCAA, and had there been some sort of regulations for NIL and revenue sharing and the transfer portal, then I think it would have been perceived better. But it's one of those things to where the NCAA is having to play catch up. And don't get me wrong, eliminating the spring portal window doesn't solve all the problems. It really doesn't even get close, but it is a good step in the right direction. And I firmly believe that because there was no need for a second window. Basketball had one window after the season. Why did football need two to begin with? I feel like one of the main rebuttals that I've been seeing is kind of comparing collegiate sports to the pro leagues. And I mean, I guess I get the correlation because of the considerable amount of money that college athletes are now able to be paid. But college isn't the pros. Maybe collective bargaining is coming down the pipeline. I mean, eventually something has to happen. But it's even worse than the pros because, well, the pros, in terms of free agency, they sign contracts. Once you sign that contract, there's really no getting out of it. Now, of course, I mean, players force their way to be traded, but it's not this wild, wild west type setting that we are seeing with college sports right now. Like, there's no regulation. So I'm all for eliminating the spring portal window because I don't see an advantage to it. Well, let me rephrase. I see an advantage for the elite programs because basically it's a tryout. Spring practice is a tryout for top programs to be able to look around the country and try to poach players from programs that are playing well in spring ball. Like, there are programs that are eliminating spring games. And fans' response is, well, what about the tradition? This isn't really the era to be talking about tradition because with conference realignment, with how scheduling is going, this is pretty much anti-tradition in this era of college sports. But I'm all for canceling spring games because why would you give other schools an opportunity to be able to watch your players play when they can just recruit them to enter the portal after the game? We've seen it happen a couple times. It's happened multiple times across the country. Like, you shouldn't have to recruit your roster twice in one offseason. It's absolutely blasphemous. You shouldn't have to do that. At this point, I mean, we've gotten to the, a time of college sports where commitments, transfer portal commitments, high school commitments, like, don't really mean a ton because chances are a player's going to flip. I mean, how many players, have committed somewhere in the portal and then they flip their commitment to somebody else? Or they go to campus throughout the second semester, and then when spring ball happens, maybe they're not on the depth chart as highly as they thought they were or they should be, and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and dip before the first game is even played. Like, I don't think that that's fair to the coaches, to some of the players. Like, I think it just needed to be regulated. So one portal window at the end of the college football season or at the end of the regular season that spans, I don't know, maybe they span it into early February. Like, that is the solution. That is the beginning to the solution. There is no reason, no valid reason why a spring portal window is needed. There's just not, in my opinion. So I promise to get off my soapbox now and stop ranting, but I'm glad and relieved that the NCAA factored common sense into this. Jeff Brom even said it. He was an advocate and supported a one-time transfer window through the offseason. So when we come back, we're going to answer some questions about Louisville's game against Bowling Green, some potential ACC trap games coming up, and much more. It's all right here, Locked on Louisville. We'll see you here soon. Card Nation, this episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring the people together, because when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. There's a local spot in my neighborhood that I like to go to every Saturday morning. It's Sunner Goss Coffee. It is fantastic. I love the vibe when I go in there and just watch College Game Day on my phone and sip my coffee. And it's all about these local spots making the neighborhood feel like home. And Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy that you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. For the Louisville Cardinals against the James Madison Dukes, Clev Lubin delivered in a big way. 10 total tackles, second on the team, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. One of those sacks forced the fumble that A.J. Green recovered in the end zone, gave Louisville their first lead of the game against JMU in the second half, and they did not look back. Just like Clev delivered for the Cardinals, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Continuing on in the second Friday edition of the show, we only have 3 questions in the mailbag. Wanted to have a larger mailbag, but we had some recruiting stuff to talk about, and then the NCAA passed the single transfer portal window, which was definitely the right idea, but I digress on that. Let's take a look at the questions. The first one is a buy or sell. Kind of makes me miss having Grant Mulligan on the show. Of course, he's been a little busy, but when his schedule clears up, we're going to have him on weekly. But buy, sell. Miller Moss will have 3 touchdown passes on Saturday against Bowling Green. Really good buy, sell here. I'm going to buy it because I think that Bowling Green is going to try to take a page out of the JMU defensive playbook. I think that they are going to try to crowd the line of scrimmage. They're going to stack the box. They're going to basically make Louisville throw the ball to beat them. Michael Burwell, BGSU football beat writer, said that the Falcons are going to try to stop the run for Louisville because that is what they do the best. Isaac Brown, one of the best running backs in the country. And you've seen Louisville's rushing struggles outside of a couple of runs that they've had from Isaac Brown. But for the most part, it's been kind of a lackluster rushing attack so far in the first 2 games for the Cardinals. So I think that Jeff Brom, and I'm choosing to believe that Jeff Brom has prepared for Bowling Green to throw some of the same tactics at the Cardinals. Like, I choose to believe that the Cardinals have made some adjustments and tweak the game plan up to be able to respond better to that style of defense, whether it's zero blitz or trying to use misdirection and using some different stunts on the defensive line. I think that Miller Moss is going to be able to capitalize on those opportunities, whether it's one-on-one Bowling Green's defensive backs are on an island. This is a group that still has to prove itself, talking about the Falcons secondary. So if you get Chris Bell in a one-on-one situation, or Colin Lacey or Trayshawn Hurry, perhaps just air it out and make the throws downfield. I do think that there's going to be an emphasis on trying to get the ball out in space like you saw in that Eastern Kentucky game. So I think that Miller Moss 3 touchdowns is very obtainable. It might be a little bit of a hot take, but that's kind of the rationale behind a buy-sell take. So very good question. I'm going to buy this. So I think Miller Moss has one of those I've arrived type games for the Cardinals. Second question. The ACC has, without a doubt, been bad. That's an understatement for the most part, outside of a couple schools. But from a perception standpoint, it's been bad. Continuing the question, sorry. But Virginia and California have impressed me so far. Do you think that they will be tougher matchups than the majority of Card Nation believes? I don't know how Louisville views Virginia and Cal. I think that Virginia is a team that always plays Louisville well, regardless of how good the Cavaliers are. They're 2-1 this season with wins over Coastal and William Mary, 2 blowouts. They lost at NC State by 4 points. So I think that Tony Elliott's team, led by North Texas transfer Chandler Morris, I mean, this is an offense that throws the football. I think that it is going to be a game where if you sleepwalk, you're going to be on upset alert. You saw it the past 2 years. So, I mean, maybe historically we've been a little jaded because of how close these games are, but I think that Virginia is a team that isn't on Louisville's level, but they could have a performance that could make things interesting. And California might be one of the largest surprises in conference play. Or I'm sorry, ACC play. Like, they are 3-0. They beat Oregon State by 19, blew out Texas Southern, and they beat Minnesota by 13. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Oregon State and Minnesota are like, oh my goodness, look what they just did type wins. But I mean, they're not bad wins. It's showing that Riverboat Ron Rivera and company have been able to at least surpass expectations early on. And they've got a really, really good quarterback, right? I mean, their quarterback is really, really solid, true freshman that's been able to throw the ball all over the field. So if Louisville's pass defense is struggling and gives up big plays, I think California, in that part of the schedule where, I mean, it's sandwiched in between some interesting games, maybe it could be a trap game, right? Like, you look at where this game is at on the Cardinals schedule. Excuse me. They play California in November, but maybe this could be a potential trap game because you're playing it right before that Friday night game against Clemson. And if Clemson is able to rebound from their tough start, it could be a primetime game. So I think California has been more of a surprise than Virginia for certain. But 2 teams that, if you sleepwalk, they can make things pretty interesting. The final question. With the bye week and only 2 games having been played, the first one, Eastern Kentucky, so it's hard to take stuff away from that game, do you feel like we as a fan base are overanalyzing the perceived weaknesses of this team due to the James Madison game? And I think that is a very intriguing question. I agree and I disagree at the same time. I agree in the sense that we have a small sample size. So the last time we saw this team play before the bye was that James Madison win. So it's like that sour taste that you have in your mouth. Your last memory of the team is the offense having 2 big plays, but that accounted for a good portion of the total yardage and the defense having to win the game. So, and it was the only test that you've had, right? So there's not something else. There's not another result that you can point to for reference. Like, the only legitimate game, and no disrespect to EKU, but James Madison was the first game that you felt like, okay, we really have to play a solid game, because if we don't, we have a potential of getting beat here, or there's a potential that we could get beat here. So I think that we are overanalyzing the James Madison game just kind of by nature, because what else will we do? I mean, that's the last that we've seen. That's the second game of the year. We had the early bye, so there's not much else to talk about. But I also disagree from a sense of, this was a test and you passed it, but it was one of those passing grades, like I would say if you had to grade the Louisville performance, it's probably a C, like maybe a C minus. Like, defense was good. That's what raises it to a passing grade. And the offense having two big plays might raise the grade just a bit, but you can't really go much higher than that. So if you have high expectations coming into a test and you get a C on that test, are you going to be happy that you got the C? No. I mean, if you are going into the test just hoping to pass, then yeah, you're going to be relieved. But Louisville fans having a double-digit spread in their favor, being a double-digit favorite, like, I mean, having that performance, yeah, there are legit concerns with the offensive line. Maybe with Miller Moss, even though I don't think so as much with the quarterback, but I think more so with the offensive line and how that's going to affect the rest of the offense, being able to run the football. There hasn't been much push up front. And I think when Trevonte Sylvester and Nate Kariski return, it's going to help from a pass pro standpoint, but I still don't think you're creating a ton of push up front until I see otherwise. So I do think that we are overanalyzing a little bit, but there are some legitimate concerns. But that is going to wrap up this second Friday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day, great weekend. Make it out to Cardinal Stadium. We'll see you there. Go Cards.